in the narrow streets of Lahore's Dharampura, where dreams were often smaller than survival. A barefoot boy once tossed a tennis ball against a broken wall. That boy, with eyes full of defiance and wrists made of wonder, would one day make the cricket ball dance like no one ever had. His name was Abdul Qadir. Born in 1955 into a humble Pathan family, Abdul Qadir's world was small. A father who served as an imam, a home with limited means, and a community that believed cricket was a luxury, not a future. But Qadir had a rebellion brewing inside him, a fire that couldn't be contained by poverty or expectation. In those dusty lanes, he found joy in the simplest rhythm, the flick of his wrist, the flight of a ball. He didn't just want to bowl, he wanted to mesmerize. At school, he was just another boy with a dream. But at RF High School and later Government College, Lahore, he began crafting his art, the ancient and fading craft of leg spin bowling, a craft so difficult, so misunderstood, that many had abandoned it. While fast bowlers ruled the game and spinners were told to keep it simple, Abdul Qadir dared to be different. He saw beauty in deception. He believed magic had a place in sport. But the world wasn't kind to dreamers. Many laughed at his looping deliveries. Some said, "This style is dead." But Abdul Qadir, with his proud mustache, hypnotic run-up, and fearless smile, refused to surrender. He practiced for hours under the burning Lahore sun, perfecting every twist, the googly, the flipper, the top spin, and the leg break, each one with his own signature. It wasn't just practice, it was poetry in motion. And one fateful day, his perseverance paid off. From the dusty alleys of Dharampura to the national spotlight, Abdul Qadir was selected to represent Pakistan in 1977. A new chapter began, and so did the rebirth of leg spin bowling in world cricket. The boy who once chased shadows in the streets of Lahore was now about to become the man who'd make legends tremble on the crease. When Abdul Qadir stepped onto the field for the first time in a Pakistan jersey in 1977, few could imagine that this wiry young man, with his unusual run-up and fearless grin, would change the very definition of spin bowling. The cricketing world had nearly buried leg spin by then. The art was seen as risky, unreliable, too hard to master. But Qadir was born for the impossible. In an era dominated by fast bowlers, when pace ruled and spin was just an afterthought, Qadir emerged like a magician in a world of machines. His wrists spoke a language that only cricket lovers could understand. A flick, a flight, a twist, and the ball would dance in mid-air before shattering stumps and egos alike. Soon, his mystery began to spread. The English, the Australians, the Indians, they all struggled to read him. Commentators called him the magician from Lahore. Batters called him unreadable. But Qadir's magic wasn't just in his bowling. It was in his spirit. He bowled not to survive, but to entertain. He didn't want wickets alone. He wanted wonder. The real breakthrough came in the mid-1980s, when his wizardry reached full bloom. In 1987, against England, Abdul Qadir produced a performance that would carve his name into cricket's history forever. At Lahore's Gaddafi Stadium, in front of a roaring home crowd, he spun webs around the English batters, taking 9 wickets, 456 runs in a single innings. It was Pakistan's best ever bowling performance in tests, and one of the finest in world cricket. That day, England didn't just lose a match, they were bewitched. The man with the mustache and the grin had shown the world that leg spin wasn't dead. It was divine. And when the 1987 World Cup arrived, Abdul Qadir continued his brilliance, becoming the best player in Group B. But in a gesture that revealed his heart as much as his talent, he donated the car he won to Imran Khan's dream project, the Shaukat Konam Cancer Hospital. For Abdul Qadir, cricket was never just about records or riches. It was about legacy, about faith, about giving something greater back to the game and to his people. From a street boy of Dharampura to Pakistan's shining star, Abdul Qadir had become a national hero. And yet, his story was far from over, because the world was about to witness something even greater, a magician who would inspire a generation of spin bowlers, including a young boy named Shane Warne. By the late 1980s, Abdul Qadir was no longer just a cricketer, he was a phenomenon. Every time he took the ball, crowds would rise, knowing something extraordinary was about to happen. With his twisting mustache, charismatic smile, and his rhythmic, skipping run-up, Qadir brought theatre to cricket. He didn't just bowl, he performed. And every delivery was a story. unpredictable, dramatic, and full of life. In 1987, his astonishing 30 wickets against England in just 3 tests became the stuff of legend. He became the first Pakistani bowler to cross 200 test wickets, a milestone that placed him among the game's elite. The greats of cricket from Graham Gooch to Richie Benaud called him a master craftsman. Gooch once said, "Qadir was even finer than Shane Warne." Those weren't mere compliments, they were acknowledgements of genius. But behind every success, there were battles unseen. Abdul Qadir faced criticism, politics, and sometimes even neglect from his own cricket board. He was fiery, outspoken, and never afraid to speak truth, even when it cost him. Yet, he never bowed down. For him, cricket was a sacred calling, and he would protect it at all costs. In the one-day internationals too, his magic shone bright. His best figures: 5 wickets for 44 runs against Sri Lanka in the 1983 World Cup became proof that wrist spin could thrive even in the shorter format. But his mission extended beyond personal glory. Qadir saw himself as a guardian of leg spin, a lost art that he had revived with love and discipline. He took young spinners under his wing, teaching them not just technique, but courage. Among those inspired was a young Australian named Shane Warne, who would later call Qadir the reason I became a leg spinner. Think about that for a moment. A boy from Lahore influencing the world of cricket thousands of miles away. That's not just skill, that's legacy in motion. Yet, time doesn't pause for anyone, not even for magicians. By the early 1990s, age and injuries began to take their toll. His form fluctuated, and younger players began to rise. In 1993, after 67 tests and 104 ODIs, Abdul Qadir finally said goodbye to international cricket. As he walked off the field one last time, the crowd stood applauding not just a bowler, but a dreamer who revived beauty in the game. He didn't just take wickets, he rescued wonder from extinction. When Abdul Qadir retired from cricket, the world didn't lose a bowler. It lost an artist who had painted every pitch with imagination and soul. But his story didn't end with retirement. It evolved. He became a mentor, a philosopher of the game, and later, the chief selector of the Pakistan Cricket Board. Even off the field, his passion burned the same. He spoke for players' rights, demanded honesty, and never feared to challenge the system because truth, for Abdul Qadir, was sacred. He wasn't just teaching spin, he was teaching courage. He often said, wrist spin is not about tricking others, it's about trusting your own hand. Under his guidance, new stars rose: Mushtaq Ahmed, Deniz Kaneria, and even those beyond Pakistan's borders. His influence crossed generations, continents, and boundaries. And somewhere in Australia, Shane Warne would often say in interviews, "Without Abdul Qadir, there would be no me." But life, like cricket, is unpredictable. In September 2019, Abdul Qadir's heart stopped beating. The magician's dance had finally ended. Yet, the echoes of his spinning ball still whisper through the game. His funeral in Lahore drew crowds from every walk of life. Cricketers, fans, children, all gathered not just to mourn, but to thank him. Thank him for teaching the world that art still belongs in sport, that imagination can still conquer numbers, that beauty still has a place in battle. 3 years later, in 2022, the world of cricket gave him the recognition he always deserved. Abdul Qadir was inducted into the ICC Hall of Fame, his name now etched forever among the immortals. No rether, softly, emotionally. Abdul Qadir didn't just spin a ball, he spun hope, he spun dreams. He spun a legacy that will never fade. From the dusty streets of Dharampura to the grandest stages of world cricket, he proved that genius doesn't come from privilege, it comes from belief. When the ball leaves a leg spinner's hand today and turns sharply past the bat, somewhere in that spin lives the spirit of Abdul Qadir. He was not just a bowler, he was the poet of spin, and his verses will echo forever.